And good morning. Kevin Miller in the morning here, KIDO Talk Radio. Phone number is 580-5436. 580-KIDO. Don't forget, KIDOTalkRadio.com, your home for all things on this station. Want to make sure that you take a look at that. And if you miss any of our programs, you can always catch them on the podcast section as well. Coming up, much more on Peter Strzok being fired. You'll hear from Representative Jim Jordan of Ohio and others. Joining us now, Karen Stranahan, to talk a little bit about men's rights. Karen, good to have you back.
Thanks for having me back.
What's it like in Canada? Aren't you from Canada?
I am from Canada, and yesterday it was freezing cold and raining. But I will say we had just come off of a heat wave. There are wildfires in BC, and the smoke from that was blowing all the way over to Manitoba. Air quality was absolutely atrocious, and the rain seems to have taken all of the smoke out, and the cold front seems to have blown it all southward. So it's actually kind of a relief. So
I was going to say, we've had like triple-digit temperatures last week, and the fires here aren't getting put out at all by the rain, so we're just trying to deal with it. Fortunately, your fires have been taken care of.
Yeah, well, I don't know that they have. The fires are in British Columbia. I don't know if they've gotten any rain or they've been taken care of. But the smoke, you would be amazed at how far that smoke can travel, halfway across the entire continent, essentially. So they were having air quality warnings from British Columbia wildfires all the way in Winnipeg. So I don't know if your listeners know what any of that means because I don't know if they're up on Canadian geography, but it's a significant distance. It would be like having problems with Seattle wildfires or California wildfires all the way over in Wisconsin. Smoke from there.
Yeah. I that smoke travels. So avoiceformen.com. What's the state of manhood in our culture today in 2018?
Oh, I think it's under assault from a number of different, on a number of different fronts. There are assaults from industrial chemicals and plant estrogens all through the water supply and the environment that tend to act as testosterone disruptors. So you have lowering testosterone levels. I think that they're about half of what they were in 1970, and they've had to lower. The World Health Organization has had to lower what's considered normal consistently 3-4 times over time since then to otherwise they're going to have more than half the male population turn up as not normal. But as well as that, I think politically and legally there are a whole number of ways in which men's their right to due process, their right to equal opportunity, things like that are under assault. Educationally, boys and men are doing very poorly. Nobody seems to really care. I was quite pleased Tucker Carlson discussed some of these issues. I believe it was in March or April in a 4-part series on Fox News on his show. So issues like unemployment and lack of educational attainment, men sort of dropping out of the system because they find that the system doesn't really care about them or doesn't suit them and their temperaments and personalities. So there's a whole host of issues. Yeah.
But how did we go from the era of Mad Men to men are nitwits, idiots? I mean, I'm watching a show last night, and with all due respect to, and I know it's scripted, the WWE, they've got Ronda Rousey beating up 5 men. 5 guys that are over like 6'3" and 300 pounders. I mean, it's just, how did men become submissive?
Well, if there's any evidence that all of that on WWE is choreographed, it would be that. And Ronda Rousey is one tough cookie. I will give her that. She is strong. You look at her muscles, holy smokes. But there's just absolutely no way, when you actually set, sort of world-class hockey team, Olympic-level female hockey teams against 15 to 17-year-old boys, playing midget AAA, they tend to lose more often than they win, the women's hockey teams. So, I mean, athletically, there's a reason why we separate out men from women at the Olympics and in other sports, right? So essentially, but I think that there is this real drive to, put men in their place. And I think that the Mad Men I think that just like Leave It to Beaver and Father Knows Best and all of those other shows from that era, those were not actually how most people were living. They were an idealized version of a lifestyle that very, very few people actually had the opportunity to experience. But we're sort of deciding to, I think society is deciding to get revenge on men based on something that really didn't exist in the way that we think it does. We get our messages from pop culture and advertising and things like that, from back in the 50s and 60s. And none of that was really the case in America or North America at that time for the majority of people. So I don't know. How did we get to the point where we want to denigrate men constantly? I guess men tolerate it and women love to be pandered to.
Well, what's the challenge for parents raising young boys these days?
Oh, geez, you have to sit your boys down the way you sit your girls down and give them that talk. And it's going to be a different talk. For your girls, you'll be talking about how, boys are going to maybe pressure you for sex. And they don't always have your best interests in mind and all of those things. Well, for boys, you have to give them an entirely different set of guidelines to navigate the world, because the legal system and the social consequences of making mistakes, putting your judgment in someone who can't be trusted, or being taken advantage of, allowing yourself to be taken advantage of, are huge. When you think about even something like being sexually taken advantage of, and there are a significant number of boys by the time they hit college who report that they have been sexually taken advantage of. They have been subjected to unwanted sexual experiences and sexual intercourse, mostly by female acquaintances. When you look at the consequences, the real life consequences of that, women have all kinds of ways of getting out of those lifelong, practical, pragmatic consequences. So, they have abortion, they have the morning after pill, they have most STDs can be treated, all of these things, right? Well, for a 14-year-old boy who's been taken advantage of by an older babysitter, if she gets pregnant, he's got a $100,000 baby mortgage, and that's legally enforceable even if she's convicted of statutory rape. So, he's going to see his paper route being garnished. And there has been a boy in the U.S. who was 14 or 15 at the time, whose paper route at age 18 was garnished to pay child support to a woman who served 2 years for sexually abusing him, and he has no custody rights. He has to seek those in court, seek rights to access custody, guardianship in court at his own expense. So essentially, when you look at the pitfalls, so many of them are legally enforced for boys and young men these days, that really it is a minefield, and you need to warn your young men.
Well, and we see it, Karen. We see it in Idaho and across the country. And I don't know if it happens in Canada, but you have these teachers, in their 20s and 30s, that are molesting young boys in school, and we kind of wink, wink, nod, nod, and go back to old Mary Kay Letourneau and what she did. And if a man would do that, he'd be labeled a pedophile. He'd be put in jail for 20 to 30, no way out. And yet you have these young women preying on these young men, and nothing seems to happen to them. We have that double standard.
Yeah, we absolutely do. I mean, I was actually quite heartened to see a woman. She had, I believe, given party drugs to a number of her students between the ages of, I think, 13 and 15 or something like that, and had improper sexual relationship is what we call it when women do it, with a number of her students. And she managed to get 18 years in prison, which is quite surprising, because usually if these women get any prison time at all, any incarceration at all. It'll be something along the lines of 2 years, maybe 6 months. But generally they'll be, given probation, community service, told not to do it again, lose their teaching license. And that's about all you can expect. Like people do say, and you see these comments all over the place, well, I wish I had that teacher when I was that age. A lot of men talk like that. But there are a number of negative sequelae that, or negative consequences emotionally, that these young men carry. I think that we don't really understand. We don't study it enough, but I do believe that there's a greater deal of emotional grooming that goes on in those types of improper relationships. And so it may not necessarily even be the sex itself that damages these boys. It is actually they get pulled in emotionally, and become highly emotionally dependent on these women. And that can cause devastating consequences when, either when the improper relationship ends, or when they decide that they don't like what's going on and they have a difficult time putting a stop to it. So,
Karen, your website of voiceformen.com, one final question. What do you make of the Me Too movement?
Oh, honestly, I think that there does need to be, particularly in places like Hollywood, some attention placed on what you would call the casting couch. And I would expand that to include Corey Feldman's grievances that he's had since the 1990s with the casting couch for child actors that exists in Hollywood. He seems to have been able to get no traction for that. But at the same time, when you combine social media with this vindictiveness and this sort of eagerness to condemn, you really are in danger of sort of a Salem witch thing, or remember the satanic panic. And we're essentially people who want to be skeptical, who want to say, let's let due process do its thing before we actually decide guilt or innocence. Let's take a look at the evidence. Oh, maybe somebody could present some evidence. That would be great. You're called a denier, and you're a misogynist and a rape apologist and all of those things. And so things are getting really, really hanky there. And I would almost call it a lynching culture. Feminists have their, rape culture that they talk about. Well, I would talk about Me Too in terms of a lynching culture, or a burgeoning lynching culture, for sure.
voiceformen.com. Karen, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Thank you very much, Sean Hannity. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. So as we were taking a look at the news of the day yesterday, right after the program, Peter Strzok, the FBI agent, was fired. I mean, this is long overdue. Peter Strzok, who so brazenly appeared before the House and said that he did nothing wrong. And as we heard it, if you're just waking up, there was a report from Fox News that now there are so far there have been six high-level FBI officials that have been fired because of the election, because of the spying on the president, because of everything else. And this is just what we're hearing about. Now, people have talked about Jeff Sessions and others, but I got to tell you, this surveillance state, I don't know if we can stop it. Here's our own Neil Cavuto with Representative Jim Jordan, one of the founding members of the Freedom Caucus, concerning the firing of Peter Strzok and why it's so important.
Developments today, as you probably heard, the FBI has fired Peter Strzok over those texts. Yeah. What do you think about that?
It's about time. I mean, the American people deserve an FBI that's not biased. They deserve an FBI that's going to focus on the truth. Obviously, Peter Strzok wasn't that individual. And I think it's important to understand he just wasn't any old agent at the FBI. He was deputy head of counterintelligence More importantly, he was the lead agent on both the Clinton investigation and on the Trump-Russia investigation. So you now have at the FBI, Neil, something I've never seen in any federal agency. James Comey fired. Deputy Director McCabe fired. Jim Rubicki, former chief of staff, has left the FBI. Jim Baker, chief counsel at the FBI, was demoted, then fired. Lisa Page, FBI counsel, demoted, then left. And then, of course, you now have Peter Strzok, who was demoted and now fired today. These are the 6 key people at the top of the FBI who ran the Clinton investigation and who launched and ran the Trump-Russia investigation. I've never seen anything like that in any other federal agency.
You know, Strzok's attorney said that his client's firing was politically motivated, that his texts were unfairly taken advantage of, that they're protected by the First Amendment, and that was political free speech, you say?
I say, come on, this is the guy who said, we'll stop Trump. This is the guy who said we need an insurance policy. This is the guy who thought he was the James Bond of the FBI, the super secret agent man. So come on, that just doesn't fly. The American people understand it. And frankly, what we learned last week, Neil, from these email exchanges between Bruce Orr, a top official at the Justice Department, and Christopher Steele, the guy who wrote the dossier. I mean, this is amazing what we learned last week, where the Clinton campaign hires Fusion GPS to produce the dossier. Fusion hires Nellie Orr, Bruce Orr's wife. Bruce Orr then takes the dossier and gives it to the FBI. It is never supposed to operate that way in this great country. But that, in fact, is exactly what happened. And we got this confirmed just a few weeks ago when Peter Strzok was in front of our committee, and on the third round of questioning, I finally got him to admit, yes, the FBI was getting the dossier from Bruce Orr, whose wife was working for the Oppo research firm the Clintons hired. That's what was going on here, and this is as wrong as it gets. And now the lawyer for Peter Strzok is saying, oh, he shouldn't have been fired? You got to be kidding me. He should have been fired a long time ago, and thankfully it happened today.
There we have it, the president just now tweeting, Strzok started the illegal rigged witch hunt. Why is it the so-called probe ended immediately? Why aren't those angry and conflicted Democrats looking at crooked Hillary? And remember, Peter Strzok was very defiant when he testified before Congress.
I wanted to address, when you bring up an integrity issue, and it's interesting, you and the gentleman from Texas raised this in a way that almost, approaches, it is insulting.
The gentleman may answer the question.
If you're going to make
so what I'm going to respond to is what I'm saying. I am here under oath. I am not lying. I have never lied under oath, and I never will. And so the insinuation, not even the insinuation, the direct comment that you somehow say you have an integrity issue is insulting. I take offense. It is incorrect.
Wow. So much for the respect for Congress in testifying.
August 15th, 2016.
I want to believe the path you threw out for consideration in Andy's office, that there's no way he gets elected, but I'm afraid we can't take that risk. It's like an insurance policy in the unlikely event you die before you're 40.
Peter Strzok. Maybe he should be prosecuted. Traffic and weather together at KIDO Talk Radio. All right, Larry, thank you very much.
You were both rooting for Hillary Clinton to win, and you both detested Donald Trump. Did you not?
I think that's fair to say.
You're here, and you're not taking the fifth.
That's correct.
Did you consider taking the fifth?
No.
Why not?
I've done nothing wrong. Let me rephrase that. I am sorry. I am sorry for these texts and the way they've been used, for the harm and hurt they've caused my family, for the perception of people in the public. And I am sorry and deeply regretful for that.
How about the harm that he's done to the integrity of all the good men and women of law enforcement?
Answer the question.
The gentleman.
If we have a problem with this policy, we should take it up with the FBI, not badger Mr. Strzok.
Remember, one of those folks in Congress said Strzok should get he should get a Purple Heart. Again, an insult to all those who have served and have been shot or injured in battle. Crazy what's going on. Strzok was long overdue to get the boot. By the way, coming up, we'll have a live report from Washington. Fox News Radio's Rachel Sutherland will join us. Remember, when you hear Fox News on the radio, you're listening to KIDO Talk Radio, your home for Fox News here in the Treasure Valley. And we'll also tell you a couple stories. One about a guy who police asked him to unlock his phone. He didn't. So he decided to spend 40 days in jail. That's right. He decided to not unlock his phone. He decided not to cooperate with authorities. Should he have spent any time in jail? We'll let you decide. And is it time to bring God back to class? One state says yes. Is it Idaho? Find out next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Doug. And Kevin Miller in the morning here. Phone number is 580-5436. 580-KIDO, talking about the Peter Strzok story. Strzok getting the boot. Finally, talk about overdue. And as we've been detailing, six people in the FBI, the highest levels of the FBI, have been shown the door, and yet no independent prosecutor, no special prosecutor, and Bob Mueller is going after poor Paul Manafort. What gives? What gives indeed? Of course, the media fixated with Omarosa. That's right, Omarosa. So we'll get into that. Plus, one state decides they want to bring back God in the classroom. We'll tell you about that next and find out if it's the gem state. But first, off to Capitol Hill, from your house to the White House to Capitol Hill. Rachel Sutherland joining us from Fox News Radio on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Rachel.
Hey, good morning, Kevin.
So, it finally happened, much to the delight of some. Peter Strzok getting the boot. Wow.
Yeah, this was announced yesterday that he was let go from the FBI after 21 years. The president has praised this on Twitter. In fact, just a few minutes ago, calling Strzok a fraud. The president, though, tweeting some kind of claim that Peter Strzok started the Russia probe. I don't think there's any evidence to really back that up. But that's the president feels vindicated by the firing of Peter Strzok, who, as you know, sent those anti-Trump text messages with his former colleague Lisa Page. And this all started with the Clinton email probe. The Inspector General found those during the course of that investigation. Then Peter Strzok and Lisa Page were dismissed from the Mueller probe. I believe Lisa Page left the FBI on her own accord. Peter Strzok fired. Did you know, though, that, I don't know if he plans to go to court over this or try to appeal or what he's going to do, but he has a GoFundMe page.
Yeah.
And do you know how much it's raised?
No.
In the past 22 hours, you want to try to take a guess? I know you probably don't like me putting you on the spot.
Oh, that's okay, Rachel. You deal in facts and I deal in something.
I like the way you put that. Okay. The friends of Special Agent Peter Strzok on his GoFundMe page have raised $241,765 in 22 hours.
My goodness.
Yeah.
I wish I had friends like that.
I don't know if it's going to be for his legal bills or, what's going to happen here, but it's a lot of green.
Do you have friends like that, Rachel?
I don't know. I don't know if I set up a GoFundMe page, what would happen. But, yeah, and a lot of these are really small donations. Looking through it all, they're pouring in. I mean, every minute, $50, $5, $20. The biggest one I've seen so far, and I haven't gone through them all, obviously. I was thinking maybe some big cheeses came through for this, but I think the biggest one I've seen is like $500. Wow.
Well, Jim.
So he's not going anywhere. No. I mean, he's left the FBI, but I mean, he looks like we haven't gotten it confirmed as a lawyer. He's going to try to fight anything in any kind of legal sense, but I mean, he has a lot of money if he wanted to do something.
What do you make of, all these officials getting fired? I mean, Andrew McCabe, right before his pension kicks in, Strzok, Comey. I don't think this has happened ever before in American history.
Never. You've never seen it. This is the third FBI official that we know of, high-ranking, who's been fired during the Trump administration. And the other side is saying, look, I mean, this is what happens if you cross this president. And some are saying this really just smacks of, dictatorialism to some degree. Others are saying, look, Peter Strzok shouldn't have done this. Even Peter Strzok says, I should never have sent those text messages. Should it have led to his firing? I guess the FBI, in its internal investigation, decided yes. But his lawyer, I believe, was on CNN last night saying that it was highly irregular the way everything was done. And again, I don't think they've confirmed one way or the other which way they're going to move and what he could even do, whether this is even appealable. But It just shows, I mean, again, I think it was John Quincy Adams who said that he who tells the best story wins. And you've got two stories out there. And the president's lawyers have been working overtime on the TV circuits. And you see Rudy Giuliani, you see Jay Sekulow, and they're out there and they're spinning. This is a story that they have, that the FBI and Justice Department was corrupt, out to get President Trump, deep state, all of that. And then the other side with the Mueller probe and Democrats saying no, that the collusion was with Russia. And you've got these very different stories. And as journalists, to try to tell both stories, it used to be that we told two sides of one story. We've got two stories here, if not more.
Fascinating, though.
It truly is, and I don't know where all this is heading. Just wait until when Robert Mueller does release his findings. I mean,
right.
That'll be a day.
It's been a day.
I don't think we'll stop working for quite some time, and you'll have that coffee going or the Keurig machine 24/7.
Well, it's been that way since then candidate Trump descended from his escalator in Trump Tower.
It has. Yeah. You're right. Life has not been the same since that escalator ride. And, we're all watching it just play out. That's all, we can do, and just try to dig as deep as we can into all the details of this. But, as far as I can tell with Peter Strzok, and you could tell from his testimony on the Hill, remember that, and I think that went on some 10 hours or so, that he's not one to take something lying down.
No, he isn't. We go back to his explosive testimony. In fact, I have that DVR'd, and I'm waiting, before before football season starts. I'm going to watch all 4 hours of it. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I'm trying to keep up with you, Rachel. You're
the one that keeps up with I guess all of everything. But yeah, we definitely do our best here to keep up with it all. It is fast moving at all times.
Now, on a lighter note, have you been watching? Not for entertainment purposes, but for your job, the Sacha Baron Cohen's Showtime series, Who is America?
No. I should do that for my job?
Oh, my goodness. He dresses up as these, phony people. Well, it's kind of you would appreciate it because he gets a one-on-one with Bernie Sanders. He asks them ridiculous questions. Some of it, obviously, is very vulgar and not very family-friendly, but to get access to Bernie Sanders, Corey Lewandowski, Sarah Palin, and some of these folks, and you know this from working your way up from the local scene, he gets these local folks that have had some national pub and gets them to do rather crazy and ridiculous things, and you think, what were they thinking?
Sounds like a great show.
Yes. Who is America? You would appreciate it just from what you deal with each and every day.
Thanks for the tip. When I have a few hours of downtime, when I'm not asleep, Kevin, I will do that.
Rachel, you have a great day. Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks, you too.
Rachel Sutherland, Fox News Radio. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. As we promised, one state is bringing God back to the classroom. Is it Idaho?
God may soon be getting a place back inside Alabama schools. One county school board working to craft a policy next month that would allow them to display the U.S. motto, "In God We Trust." This coming after a state law gave schools the option to do so. Legal battles are expected as critics want to separate church and state. Tennessee recently passed a similar law requiring the motto in all schools. And God may soon be getting a place back inside Alabama schools.
There we have it. Mrs. Miller gave me this story the other day, and I said, yes, I know all about it. And look, some states are very conscious of being socially conservative, of being God-friendly. Now, at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, as we get ready for the school year, as we get ready for another year of adventure, of education, of insight, of critique, how God-friendly should schools be? I see no harm in putting "In God We Trust" in the classroom, but I see no harm in having the Ten Commandments up there. Now, I know not everybody shares my opinion, but at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, which is the greater challenge to the young mind of today? The molding of the young mind or the contamination of? Putting "In God We Trust" there, is that more damaging than some of the secular ideas or the revisionist historians? I see no problem with this. I'd like to talk about this. "In God We Trust" in every school here in Idaho. Who would have an issue with that? And in my opinion, if you have an issue with it, I just can't see you be fully embracing traditional America. If you don't want In God We Trust in schools, in my opinion, I believe that, you have an issue with the founding of the republic. I think you have an issue with the founding fathers. How can you not love America? How can you not be a religious person and not want that back in the classroom? 580-5436, 580-KIDO. We go to Cindy in Caldwell for her final week in the Treasure Valley. And now the end is near.
Oh, good morning, Kevin. Seriously, I just love the show, but it's really hard to keep up with you all because you have so many different fine topics, which I have a comment on each one. And so that said, it's really sometimes hard to pick what you want to talk on. One, school bonds, no, vote against them. I really find it interesting how they market. Let's put something in like ag to the one in Wilder so we can get our kitchen. Really? Now, why don't you start just teaching these young men? Yes, I am a voice for men. I won't go into that one, but Yahoo for having that woman on. And, even if a woman wants to go learn how to be a good person, and my mechanics help me out at Jiffy Lube, or the ones over there at the muffler place, or, give them a trade that they can do. Really, you really need an expanded football field, but really, I will not miss your Tanya Powers. Interesting.
Tanya Powers, that was Rachel Sutherland.
Oh, rather, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Rachel. But you know what? It's always interesting with her, how she'll throw in words to sort of label the president with terms like, dictatorial. No, these aren't stories. These are cases that are before very serious and very spendy cases that have cost the taxpayers a lot of money. And there are facts to be had. There is truth. Rachel, either someone's right and someone's wrong. And would you not expect his followers Struck to be sending money in? Judas sold out for 30 pieces of eight. So I can imagine the people that are sending in their money. They will do every single thing they could to denigrate this president, to take him down. And so, it just doesn't cease to amaze me. But her reporting, yes, being from Washington, I will not miss it all. I used to start copying down some things she would say. So it's facts. There aren't stories that will be had. But seriously, Kevin, I just really want to say, in leaving Idaho, just like this morning, I don't think people realize what a wealth of information and topics that you give out. You've been on 6 different things, and of course I have a response to each and every one of them. But I just want to say to you all, keep being the voice for conservatism. And the night is too far spent in America. Me and my grandchildren are homeschooled, because if you continually to have a socialistic driven agenda, Creator God, that God is out. So the small g God, they don't even know anymore. What does that mean in God we trust? That notion of a more homogeneous America that our forefathers had when they started the school system to educate people to read, and what were they reading? They were reading a hymnal and a Bible. So that notion is long since. So to me, Alabama wants to go put this forth, whatever southern state have at it. But the problem is, decades later, this is America that doesn't act out on any biblical principles. And that's why we have what we have. 10 Commandments are reflection.
Right, but why not bring that back? And again, why not Idaho? Why can't we do that?
Well, Kevin Miller, the problem is where I'm going, there are several groups that can get the Bible in the school unless they have, to me, an intrinsic understanding of biblical principles. That they will be clueless about that anyway. And then those that have other gods. I'm going back to a place that there's a lot of Sikhs, there's a lot of other people. So personally, I have a Judeo-Christian notion.
Sure, but we're just saying in God we trust. And you walk into such and such school, and the first thing you see is, welcome to Cindy from Caldwell School, in God we trust. You know that the libs, the America haters, the God haters would have a problem with that. To me, it's on the money. America was created by God for us. It wasn't created by the government. It wasn't created by the secular people. It was created, again, by the Creator, according to the Declaration of Independence. You can't argue with that. And yet as you pointed out, we've grown so away from God that, you're going to have people trying to take this to court. And, where's their right mind in all this?
Well, the right mind is where their mind is at, because unless you do know and have the knowledge and are brought up with, like the children that went to school when this country was first birthed, they knew. I mean, Webster's dictionary that they used in the school talked about things like sin, talked about things like Satan, talked about things like morally right and wrong, what that actually meant according to biblical principles. So, yeah, have at it. But do I think it will make any difference at all in America today? No, I think the night is far spent. I think, Dinesh D'Souza said it all in his movie, Death of a Nation. America's going to have to decide. And, you can put all this bond money into whatever, but it's that the curriculum matters.
Well, remember what happened to him.
Oh, yeah. I mean, of course. Well, they targeted him just like the deep state will. You're surprised that 6 FBI agents
they prosecuted him.
Yes, they did. And
yeah.
He did go to jail, did he not? It's in the movie. Yes, he did. So, Kevin, just like you, someday I'm not going to be here. Literally, I may go off and home to my Jesus, but someday you're going to have to draw a line in the sand like he did. But look at his comeback, Kevin. And he's challenging you, do we want to be Venezuela? Do we want to, and with cultural pluralism that is driven through your schools, instead of this assimilation, they assimilated back then so they could have biblical principles. So they had a firm understanding what it means when you pull out the coin of the realm and it says, that God, in God we trust. No, we have people now that are taking an oath in our Congress on a Koran. That is a totally different God. I don't serve that God. That is not my Jesus. I know exactly who I serve because I was, it says train a child up like my grandchildren are trained up. So right. I am agreeing with you, Kevin.
How much are you going to be here till Friday?
Oh, I'm going to be here. I'm getting my plasma on Sunday. Thank you all out there that donate plasma.
All right.
And then on Monday, I will be driving over, I hope, since my fuel pump just went.
All right.
The state of Washington.
Okay, Cindy. Tea Party Bob wants you to call him. So we'll have your going away party soon. And Dwayne wishes you luck. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning. Wondering when it's time to bring God back to the classroom. God back to schools. Let's go to Dave in Meridian. Good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio.
Yeah, good morning, Kevin. The founding fathers, of course, with the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, it seems like, from the experiences of what happened in England, this mythological separation of church and state, the revisionists have taught our kids is just so out of touch with what the essence of that really meant. And with the monarchies that ruled over England, the official denomination would be, with every king that came along, there'd be a new denomination, whether it's Church of England or Catholic Church, and that would be the official sanctioned denomination of England. And the founding fathers did not want that to be a repeat, because they were seeking religious freedom. And primarily the people that came over for religious freedom were in a few different categories. There were Catholic, Protestant, and some small areas of where Jewish communities were. And the founding fathers understood that, the representative form of government, the president was not going to dictate an official denomination. That was not the separation of church and state does not mean there's no expression of God whatsoever in government or government buildings. It just means that the politicians will not dictate one official denomination to the people.
Right. People in Michigan seem to forget about that separation of church and state, too, by the way, if you know where I'm going on that one.
Yeah. And, the ACLU has been kind of gotten away with this revisionism, where it seems like the last 20 years whatever particular atheist is living in some small community wants to take on some church or school system and just contort and torture the text.
Right. Dave, God bless. Thank you for the call. Good morning, Dave.